Welcome to the Libertarian Counterpoint. I'm Richard Fields. On the program this evening, we have John Cameron, who is the author of Rekill and Rewire, both available on Amazon, and the forthcoming book in the trilogy, Aristocracy, a rollicking adventure about a cruiser, a cruise liner being
a cruise ship.
A cruise ship. Yeah.
We'll leave it at that.
Okay, we won't tell. We won't give away the plot. And also selling when you can't see the white of their eyes. Another author too here as well is L.K. Samuels, Lawrence Samuels, author of In Defense of Chaos, and the forthcoming, just soon to be hot off the press, Government: A State of Deception, followed by the phony left-right dichotomy. Welcome to the show, gentlemen. The theme of government, a state of deception, must be getting an awful lot of material. You must be getting a lot of material from it from the primary caucuses and elections that are going on right now. The Iowa caucuses just finished up, and on the Democratic side, there's a virtual tie between Hillary and Bernie. And Hillary, of course, is being dogged by a whole lot of baggage, including an FBI investigation on the whole wire email issue. John, what's your analysis of who's going to end up actually winning the Democratic primaries?
It'll be
nomination?
Hillary. Hillary's going to have the deeper pockets.
Even if she has to campaign from in handcuffs?
Well, actually, she should already be under arrest for violating the Official Secrets Act, because she, of the emails that she released, she was so inefficient in getting rid of the evidence, and she got rid of tens of thousands of emails, only released a certain number. It turns out that a number of them discussed top secret things. And discussing top secret things in an insecure or unsecure environment is basically a violation of, So I think we're going to have to speak up a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's a violation of the Official Secrets Act. If you were to discuss, sit at a coffee house and discuss something that was top secret, you would be breaking the law if you were privy to that information. So having that information on a private email server and having those emails originate there is basically patently a violation of the Official Secrets Act. If it was anybody else, they'd already be in jail. But since it's one of the bulletproof Clintons, chances are not. Now, I don't think she's going to be prosecuted because she is a Clinton. And so that's going to be the problem. But the big problem for Bernie is going to be money. He's getting out of his $25 million or so that he has gotten, $20.2 million of that is from donors who are, there's some background noise going on, I'm finding it hard to concentrate. There's $20.2 million of that has come with under $200 donations, so very small donations. Hillary's donations are from the usual troughers, the people with their snouts in the trough. And what's going to happen is those people have deeper pockets, and she will have tremendously huge war chest compared to Bernie, and money is what wins the election.
You know, I'm not sure that's the case. On the Republican side, the money, no lack of money in the Jeb Bush campaign.
Yes.
He's got money up the kazoo. Super PACs, third-party spending, spending in his own campaign.
Well, he's not a good politician.
Of course, he's not. But
Hillary's a great politician.
I'm not so
Have
sure.
to define great.
I'm not so sure about that. But
Well, I'm not saying she'd make a great leader. I'm not saying she was an adequate Secretary of State.
I don't think she's a good politician. She's totally unlikable. But the point is, you can spend as much money as you want on a dud, and it doesn't make any difference.
So you're saying that Hillary's a dud?
With,
Well, Bill thought so.
Well,
with the campaign as
maybe the other way around, I'm not sure.
With the way campaigning is working out right now, we're looking at a campaign where television, which is the big money suck on political campaigns, is less and less important for a couple of reasons. One,
The internet.
nobody's watching it anymore. And two, internet, yes. The social media, the email campaigns, all
Now,
of those are very, very
on
inexpensive
that note,
ways.
I would agree with you that Bernie has the young ideologues on his side, and they are digital natives, and they understand the medium, they understand how to use it, and they understand how to use it without spending a lot of money, which is what you're talking about. But I still say that the entrenched powers that be, the special interest groups, know that their bread is buttered exactly where it's buttered with Hillary.
Oh, yeah.
They're not so certain where it's buttered with Bernie.
It's
so-
not. Well,
Yes,
maybe it's
yes.
not.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny with Bernie. A lot of his followers have seen Hillary as the hypocrite. Here she's talking about, oh, we got to rein in Wall Street Journal the Wall Street, the Wall Street crowd, when she's getting a lot of her money from the Wall Street crowd. And I think this is what giving some energy to Bernie because they see this hypocrisy. I mean, she's always saying the opposite of what she does. And so the money sometimes won't help, but I do think what will happen is as you get into southern states and other Midwestern states, you'll get a more conservative Democrat that will not like the word socialist. And so I don't know about the money part of it, but it's the West Coast and the East Coast. That's where you get your more collectivistic type people. The Democrats in the middle are more like the blue dog Democrat.
Well,
but
Iowa's not the West
East and
Coast or the
West-
East Coast. Iowa is the heartland, and Bernie came in tied.
well, that's
essentially.
true. That's true.
And,
That's true.
and the East and West Coast are what elects. The population is on the East and
Yeah,
West
well,
Coast.
yeah,
not
well,
on
yeah,
the
Yeah,
yeah.
most of the population votes are on
I'm
the
not,
coast.
I'm not sure. I'm not. I mean, I think Hillary peaked way too soon. She was the front runner before the contest actually began.
and
I'm not sure that it's hers to walk away with, despite all of the money. I think that she we may end up with a Obama Clinton redo. He didn't have the money when he was running. He had the ability to raise a whole lot of money through the internet and small donations. Bernie Sanders is doing exactly the same thing. He's
Well,
probably using the same people.
Well,
Yeah,
Bernie
but
is certainly
2008, Obama got more money from Wall Street than the McCain did.
Well, that could very well be. But my point is that, well, first of all, Democratic Socialist,
Yeah.
does that really mean that when push comes to shove, Bernie won't take some Goldman Sachs money, that he won't take some Wall Street money, and won't make some promises that, hey, I'm just talking a good game, I'm not really going to sock it to you guys?
I don't know.
I
That's a
think
good
he'll take
question.
it. But let's go back to the likability factor that you talked about, because generally people want to hire someone who's likable, which is why the Republicans have had such a tough time. And if Trump, gets a nomination, he's, for most people, a patently unlikable guy. Whereas Bernie's a pretty likable guy. So I think, I think that Hillary will end up with the money, and she's got the machine and all the rest of that. But I'm kind of hoping you're right. And I'm not hoping you're right because I agree with Bernie's politics, but I just hate to see Hillary is such a political animal, and is when Obama came to the forefront, a lot of the entrenched Dems, the big money guys, said pretty much, we expect people in Washington to lie, but the Clintons raise it to another level. So I would like to see that that part of the Democratic Party gone. I don't really care who else is in there, but I would like to see. I would like to see her not get.
I'm going to
the
disagree with you a
nomination.
little bit. I liked Bill Clinton in retrospect.
Well, no, I like Bill.
He was a lot. He was a lot better president than George W. Bush.
Well, no.
in a lot of respects.
Yes.
I mean, he did
Spending and
free
all
trade.
that, yeah.
He did.
Less
He balanced the budget for the first time since the 50s. He with help from the Republicans, obviously.
Yes.
But he was able to do. He was pragmatic enough to do the right thing in many cases. He was even talking talking about privatizing or putting a private option in for Social Security based on the Chilean model until Monica Gate got in the way and made it not happen. The whole thing is he actually moved, he was a centrist, New Democrat, as they called him back then. And I don't know whether Hillary will follow that same template, but I think she likes money and power and is greedy enough that she might. I mean, crony capitalist to the hilt, but still capitalist as opposed to a democratic socialist. I think.
Well, they asked her on MSNBC, what's the difference between a democratic socialist and a Democrat, and she couldn't answer it.
Well, because she cannot politically, she has to tilt to the left in order to try to get as many votes away from Bernie Sanders as she can.
I know. She has to take positions to try to move closer.
Yeah,
to
they were trying to argue over who was the most progressive and who was the most
That's
liberal.
right.
Yeah.
So
That's right.
that's an argument.
But that's
I
a
would-
primary
I would-
argument. That'll go away. come the
Yes,
general election.
yes. Once
I
you
still
get back
think-
to general public, that's
You
true.
know, I agree with you on Bill. In hindsight and retrospect, he ended up being one of the best presidents from the perspective of he understood that.
He understood the bond market.
He might talk the liberal agenda and the democratic control of the financial process, but he understood what you were talking about or will be talking about on the next show, which is that
Yes.
You have to lie to get elected.
if you control the means of production and industry, if government's running it, it's running it poorly, the economy's going to tank, and you're never going to get reelected. So he
Yes.
understood the
understood.
pragmatism. He might have talked out of one camp, but he understood the reality was in
Well,
the other.
let's look at the Republican primaries. The Iowa caucuses ended up with Cruz upsetting Trump. Trump was the front runner. We don't know what's going to happen in New Hampshire yet. Trump is leading in the polls there. Rubio got a ticket out of Iowa by coming in third. Rand folded, and a few other people folded. And the guy with all the money, Jeb Bush, actually was begging his crowds, very small crowds, to clap. Turns out that some of those crowds were paid-for crowds, and they were asking Jeb, when are they going to get paid? When are we going to get paid?
Yeah,
At the while they were in the audience, which
When do I get my money?
Yeah, I got the money.
what in the world is happening to the Republican Party that they are moving so far away from the liberty message of Rand Paul and so far toward the populist, authoritarian Trump candidacy and the warmongering of both Cruz and Rubio?
Yeah. It's horrible to see. I mean, the Republicans a long time ago, the old right was non-interventionistic, and Taft and so forth. It was the Democrats always got you into war generally, and now the Republicans.
Now they both do.
Well, they're all moving towards statism more, and now where the Democrats used to be, the Republicans are. Now the Democrats have moved to another direction. But remember, when we went into Iraq the second time, a majority of the Senate Democrats voted to go into Iraq.
Yeah.
I think it was almost 60% of the Democrats in the Senate
Including
supported Bush in going to Iraq. And yes, and so you have warmongering on the Democrat side. It just, they just try to soften it.
So do you think
So they're Me Too Republicans?
do you think that warmongering is Wag the Dog? Was that the name
Wag
of the
the
movie?
Tail.
Wag the Tail.
Yeah.
Is that they understand that if people ever are not distracted by a war or climate change or something that they can keep in front of the idiot sitting in front of the idiot box, that it's good theater. War is good theater, and that will be distracting. Do you think they're cynical enough
Well,
to actually think of it in that way?
It's really kind of strange because you think of Wilson, you think of the FDR. When they ran for election, they ran as peace candidates
And did exactly the opposite.
and did exactly the opposite. So if someone is maybe advocating war, will he do the opposite? I don't know.
Well, I guess we could
Well, and
only hope.
you have Obama, who patently
Ran
said
as a peace candidate.
and we're going to get out, we're going to close Guantanamo, we're going to get
No,
out of
it
here,
was-
we're going to get out of there.
We're going to get
And
out of
he's-
Afghanistan. Now
we're
he's
gonna
going
get
to
out of
increase
Afghanistan.
maybe more
And,
troops.
and he started a war. Not only we were in Iraq and Afghanistan, he added Syria and Libya to the mix.
And on top of that, he's basically assassinating people with drones.
and
Oh, with
Yemen.
drones.
Left and
yeah,
right.
yeah.
Well, he's trying to
Yeah.
assassinate people, but collateral damage is killing a whole lot more civilians than it is bad
Oh,
guys.
yes, yeah.
So we have somebody who ran as a peace candidate and basically now is a
So is
presidential
it going to be
hitman.
Rubio for peace
That'd be pretty. That'd be
or
interesting.
Cruz for
you know,
peace?
Cruz
Yeah.
for peace. Cruising for
It's just-
peace, baby.
It's just
We're
hard
cruising
to.
for peace.
I mean, almost every.
Since all politicians lie, the thesis of your book
Well,
is
yeah. I mean, think of
so
2008.
we have to vote for the people who we disagree with. Is that
Well, you
true?
see, the thing is, a lot of people don't vote because no matter who they vote for, they get the wrong things. I mean, when they voted for Obama, they thought they were voting against Bush instead of bringing another Bush in.
Well, let me ask you this. Let's just make a very scary assumption and assume it's Bernie versus the Trumpster in the general
To
election.
Trumpster, I like that.
What does that do for the chances of Gary Johnson or whoever ends up being the Libertarian nominee? I'm assuming Gary Johnson, but there's a couple dozen that are actually running for that position.
Right. I think it's going to be very, very hard. It just they crowd him out. Trump will suck the oxygen out of the room, and maybe more than that.
So he'll continue to suck the oxygen out of the room, and there won't be any media given
Yeah.
to.
Well, maybe later on their blood too.
Yeah.
Well, no, unfortunately, I think you said it, but not in those exact words, that people are trying to vote for the lesser of two evils. But that if both of them are equally evil, who are you going to vote for? But instead of thinking about that and making a decision, well, we have to start somewhere. And in this election, I'm going to vote my conscience, and I'm going to vote the moral high ground. And eventually, these parties are going to change because they're going to understand that I'm doing that. What happens in American politics is it used to in the past anyway, a movement would grow and it would be absorbed by one of the major parties. They would understand, oh, this is the wave of the future. This is where I need to go to get the votes and do it. But if people are unwilling to cast that vote, and I think it doesn't really matter, the two parties are basically mirror images of each other, authoritative in almost all aspects of government. I hate to say it, but people have really given up. They're
a lot of
kinda
people have.
apathetic. And
Right.
even if they vote, it's like, and I don't really know. This guy sucks, but this guy blows. I mean,
And you never know
so-
what they're really going to do. No matter
And-
what they
yeah.
say, you never know what they're going to do. They're most likely going to do the opposite of what they say. So I can understand why a lot of people. I mean, I used to be involved in a libertarian
Well,
group telling people not to vote.
Yeah, I have to say
Or vote
that
twice.
ever since I voted for, trying to think, I started voting back in whenever Nixon was running, 1968, I guess it was, and that was the first time there was a Libertarian on the ballot, John Hospers, and I absolutely could not stomach Richard Nixon or the Democrat at that time. I don't even remember who it was, Humphrey maybe. I voted for John Hospers, and I've voted Libertarian ever since. And I would have voted for Ron Paul, would have voted for Rand Paul had they won the nomination, but they didn't, so I voted Libertarian. What I want to know is there going to be a groundswell of people like me that will say, it really doesn't make any difference if you vote for a Democrat or a Republican, you're going to get the same
You're gonna get the
noxious
same.
stew,
Yeah.
whoever you vote for.
Yeah.
Well, I would hope so.
Now,
I would hope so.
you
But
know, now the only
you got
argument against
1%
that,
in the
the only
last
argument
election,
against that,
1%.
the only argument against that is the Supreme Court, because the Republicans do tend to nominate slightly better Supreme Court nominees. Souter is the exception,
Slightly.
and yeah, slightly.
Slightly, yeah. That's true on that part. Well, I mean, the more people who vote for the Libertarian Party, even though they don't win, the more the other parties look at it, see what
And
they're
say,
doing.
hey,
As else-
we need to copy that.
Yeah, copy it, or hey, there's some popular support, so we better look at their issues.
Yeah.
Well, the young people, I do a lot of work from coffee houses. I write a lot from coffee houses. And you scratch a lot of these young folks, and you're going to see a lot of socialists, yes. And you always see, communists and socialists, ideal ideology, the ideologues in youth, but there's an awful lot of people who pretty much will say, no, yeah, if I were to put a label on myself, I'd say libertarian.
Yeah.
And I think that, if they start to vote, if they actually get out and vote,
Yeah.
right, they're disenfranchised more than anybody because the American dream has been stolen from them because all the wealth is spent for generations to come. So, if they decide, well, we're gonna put a line in the sand and do something about it now, who knows? Maybe in another 20 or 30 years, real change will happen.
Starting with Al Gore and before, the Democratic Party has glommed onto the environmental movement, the green movement, because they recognize a good control instrument when they see one. Witness all of the bureaucracy that's been formed to stop global warming. Republicans are tending to say, hey, that's a pretty good scam. We need to do it too, and so they're Me Too environmentalists. We, of course, if we take a really close look at what is actually happening with the climate in a very long-term historical perspective, we'll see that there's really no way of predicting that the globe is going to warm or cool or do anything else.
Well, long term, we know
It'll be cyclical.
We're overdue right now for an ice age.
And
I know
there is something called the Cool Futures Fund Management. Tell me what in the world that is all about.
Well, it's I don't know a whole lot about it now, and it's really kind of it's a crowd-funded hedge fund, and what they plan on doing is
Wait a minute. I thought a hedge fund, you had to be an accredited investor and all
well,
that.
no, there are people involved with it. See, and here's the word. Talk about spin doctoring. Hedge fund, basically, we used to call them mutual funds, but now in order to make them sound bad, they called them hedge funds. And in the past, a hedge fund was a mutual fund that hedged, was basically an insurance fund against major cyclical swings in the market. So
they have both long and short positions.
So if it was a hedge fund in the bond market and everybody else is long, they would be short, so they'd hedge it. So the cool futures, a play on words, they're cool, like way cool, and also cool in that the prediction for long-term climate based upon historical records is
And
cyclicality.
cyclicality.
Is that we should be going into in the very near future and are overdue based upon the last million years or so for an ice age. So what they're going to do is bet on that, bet that the global warming folks are wrong and try to make some money off of it. Now, what they fail to realize is that actuarial folks and all of the other people who do investing now are already betting that way, because I haven't seen a piece of beachfront property that's gone down in value ever. And if those Sharpies who run insurance companies thought that there was any risk for the oceans rising significantly, as the green fearmongers say, you betcha it would be way more expensive to buy flood insurance or major catastrophic occurrence insurance.
And the price of
for those
beachfront property would be going
$1 billion,
down,
and
not
the
up.
beachfront property would go down. So the economy is already making the bet that the green folks are wrong.
So you don't see too much actual alpha in this strategy.
I think it's a great strategy. The problem is that government regulation can grab and distort a market, as it always does. So it doesn't matter what's really happening in the economy.
Yes.
What's going to matter is what's happening with governments redistributing the wealth and controlling the economy. So I think they're going to be fighting that. But I think that if they were just betting for or against nature, it'd be a great way to make money.
The Super Bowl is coming up shortly, and there's all kinds of news stories about human trafficking to, I guess, service all of the people who are going to the Super Bowl. Is that really I have a problem with the term human trafficking.
Well,
what they're really talking about is prostitution.
Well,
prostitution, of course, isn't a problem if it's legal.
But unfortunately, it's a horrible problem, and it is human trafficking, and in many cases, because you're talking about, people who are brought into the country under false pretenses and in essence forced to work as sex slaves. So because it's illegal and because people don't have protections like as any other worker on a factory floor would have, it is human trafficking. And I like the fact that they're calling it human trafficking because they're shining a light on it. Now, if they take the next step and legalize it and give people free market protections, then it would be a great thing. But I don't think they're going to take that step.
Well, right now, the polls, if you take a poll on whether or not people support or oppose prostitution being legal, it's about 50-50. It's, well, 45-45, and the rest of, 10% don't know. That being, and that's a very strong shift in attitude from where it used to be, with 30% or something like that favoring legalizing prostitution. So the public opinion is moving in favor of legalizing prostitution. That being the case, the folks who are very virulently opposed to prostitution being legal are changing the terminology, changing it to human trafficking, which includes prostitution, but it also includes a whole lot of other things, a whole lot of other occupations where people are in fact being enslaved.
Well, I think human trafficking, it should be used because what it's saying is the person involved in it is not there voluntarily. And so you have to have some kind of
It
term
includes
to
both.
show. Well, I wouldn't, I'm not sure if I would include prostitution in human trafficking because normal
But it's being
prostitution is voluntary.
Well,
Okay, then it
no,
shouldn't be.
normal prostitution is not voluntary. If you
I mean,
look at,
I mean-
if you look at the people who are working as prostitutes in almost every level of society, except for very high-priced courtesans, those people did not choose that lifestyle. They were forced into that lifestyle. They were forced by circumstances that would make you and I have nightmares, family circumstances, economic circumstances. Yes, they could have chosen to starve to death, or yes, they could have chosen
That's an
to
empirical
be-
question. I'm
to
not
be
sure that-
beaten
I'm not-
to death.
I'm not
But
sure
what-
that empirically
what-
that's correct,
Here's the problem. The problem is you can't find good numbers on it.
Yeah,
You can't
exactly.
find. There certainly are people who volunteer and are of a right mind and choose to go into prostitution. But I would hazard a guess that if you could find really good numbers on it, most of those people have not made what you and I would call a choice to go into prostitution.
There is a group of sex workers. In fact, they tried legalizing prostitution in San Francisco. I think Star Child was involved in that. Yeah, maybe we should get him on the show.
We should do
for
that. We should have Star
And
Child.
I'd like to
and
see some numbers on it.
Yeah, I'd like to see
some real numbers.
Yeah.
We're out of time, and this is a really good topic. We'd love to continue it for another hour, but we can't. We're out of time. We'll see you again next
Well,
week
we can-
on Libertarian Counterpoint. Well, we have time for one more subject. Okay, let's do it. Obama finally made a formal visit to a mosque. A mosque that's under FBI surveillance.
Aren't they
Does
all-
anybody care?
Aren't they all under
Do we care?
FBI?
Yeah.
Okay, we don't care. That's the show.
Well,
We'll
his
see you
name-
again next week, same time.
His name is Barack Hussein
Yeah,
Obama.
yeah.
So it
We'll
would
see you
make
again
sense.
next week, same time, same place, on the web at accesssacramento.org, on Channel 17 in Sacramento, and of course, on YouTube and on cable channels in your local neighborhood. Check local listings for time and channel.